Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. I'm the guy in the little corner here, but welcome on Agree or Disagree, the podcast. We'll be watching also on Facebook Live. This will also be on YouTube as well, and on iTunes and Spotify as an audio podcast on Agree or Disagree, the podcast. We are recapping the Calgary Flames' first win in the playoffs since 2015. Early May when they defeated the Anaheim Ducks in overtime. And joining me is from Fireside Chat. Matt Duborg is joining me to recap the game. How's it going?
Oh, I think that was a fairly decent game. I don't think you could have asked too much more from the boys in red tonight.
Yeah, if there was a way to start a playoff series, this for the Calgary Flames, considering all that was questioned going into the playoffs, the biggest question was about Mike Smith, and I think he started off by answering every single one of his critics tonight.
Well, those couple of glove saves that he made when it was tied, I think that might have made everything a lot easier for the team. Everybody seemed to calm down, especially during that one power play in the second period for Colorado, where he made those two glove saves like back to back.
Yeah.
And it just kind of settled the team down. It's like, okay, Smith's dialed in. Let's go, boys. Let's go kick some butt.
Yeah, it really was the start of the second period, I felt, was the turn in the game. The first period, I thought the first half of the first period was more the Flames were on it. The first 10 minutes kind of expected the home team was going to have that advantage. But I thought the Colorado Avalanche in the second half, and even early in the second period, I thought their defense played really well. They were trapping the Flames in the neutral zone. They were getting sticks in the way. But I think those two big saves, you're right, on the power play from Mike Smith, I think it just – I not only lifted the team, I think the crowd – I do not remember, Matt, you have to tell me, has there ever been a Smitty chant in the Saddle Dome?
I don't recall ever hearing one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And he very well deserved, and especially because he's gotten a lot of crap over the course of the season, getting booed regularly, especially early in the year. I think that has to feel really good for him personally to have the fans just not only cheering for him, but like chanting his name and showing that, hey, bygones are bygones. You're doing awesome, great. Let's go. And it's definitely a big change from earlier in the year.
Yeah. I think, it was certainly – what were your thoughts going in? Were you on the Mike Smith train, or were you thinking that they should have went with Rittich? Because we haven't talked much of you.
Back in February, when he started to turn his game around a bit towards the end of February, I was fully on the Mike Smith for Game 1 train, because Rittich has been a little inconsistent at times, and there's one little flaw with Rittich that I've noticed, in that any shot that's just above his arm on his right side tends to go in the net, and he just isn't reacting quickly enough to any shot on his right side. And that might be one of those little things that he'll have to adjust over time, but Smith, when he's on, he's good. When he was with the Coyotes, he dragged them to the conference finals that one year. The first time LA won the Cup. And he can play at an elite level. He was an all-star last year. He has it in him. And I think the beginning of this season, he was dealing with both goaltending equipment changes and recovering from that injury from last year. And now that that's seeming to be behind him, we're seeing more of the Mike Smith that we were used to at the beginning half of last season. And if that's the case, then that bodes very well for the Calgary Flames and their hopes for a deep playoff run this year.
Yeah. And so let's go through the goals here. There's only 4 to recap. It was funny, just before the first goal, Cassie Campbell-Pascal was talking about Philip Grubauer's flexing and how weird that was. And it felt like Andrew Mangiapane might have heard that and said, "Hold my beer," because he stretched out as far as he possibly could to score the first goal of the series. And that was a hell of a goal. It's unassisted that made it 1-0. And then late in the second period, the Flames got a power play, and it was funny. I was thinking that I'd much rather be in 2-0 going into the third than 1-0. Matthew Tkachuk scores his first. He is already living rent-free in the Avalanche head. That took only 4 minutes.
Actually, I want to go back to that the Mangiapane goal.
Yeah.
That actually all started due to a good hit by Garnet Hathaway on Ian Cole. And on our show, I was identifying him, specifically Hathaway, and Cole even, as someone that guys like Hathaway, Tkachuk, Neal, and Bennett should go and hit because he's prone to doing dumb things when he's hit. And whether it's taking dumb penalties or costly turnovers, and sure enough, Hathaway hits him, completely stuns him, and then Mangiapane has a clear road to the net and did what he did. And I just want to give some props to Hathaway for having one of his best games as a Flame.
Yes.
And I think he was a force. And if he keeps this up, he's going to be renowned like Ferland was for just being that thorn in the side of the opposition.
Yeah, before we go on to the next goal, I think that one of the other things that I don't think that people nationally are giving enough credit to the Flames for is this fourth line of Mangiapane, Ryan, and Hathaway. Derek Ryan has been an absolute find and gem for the Flames. For the last second half of the season, it's pretty if I said that he was the best Flames forward, it's almost hard to argue that that's not a ridiculous hot take, because he has been consistent. They've been able to move him up and down the line, I thought tonight
is the player that I think management was hoping that they'd be getting when they acquired Matt Stajan.
Yeah,
and he just does everything well, and rarely does he ever make a mistake or have a bad game. He's excellent in the face-off circle, and he's a good foil for whichever line mates he's with, because he's good enough where if a guy makes a ridiculous pass, he can receive it and take that shot. And in the past, especially with fourth-line centers, it's just counting the 45 seconds until we get an NHL player on the ice.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing that I think is it became pretty clear, especially as this game went on. The bottom six forwards for the Flames, I think, are much stronger than the bottom six forward for the Avalanche, and I think that that's going to end up being one of the differences in this series.
Well, I think that's one of the keys for the Flames if they're going to go far in the playoffs. If you look at all of the teams, only Tampa Bay really has that kind of depth throughout their lineup. And Calgary can just roll four lines and be perfectly fine with whomever they throw out there.
Yeah.
And you look at every other line, like Colorado, they had an infographic at the end of the second period where it showed McKinnon's line had 17 minutes of ice through the first 40 minutes. And Gaudreau's line had 10.
Yeah.
and just that ability for us just to throw line after line after line and not really caring which of the four lines is out there will be huge, especially if the Flames move into the second, the third, and fourth round. That all of our guys will be relatively fresh, where other teams who only have one or two really good lines are going to be more burnt out just because they have to double shift their good players. Yeah,
because really that was in Connor McDavid ice time mode, and that's not what you need to be doing in a playoff series. It's going to be hard. And McKinnon, I felt Nathan McKinnon got pretty frustrated at this. The whole Colorado team ended up getting frustrated, but I think it started with McKinnon and it started to drip on with the team, because he was a pretty frustrated player in the second half of the game.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's the beauty of having Tkachuk's line stapled to them whenever they're in the Saddle Dome, because we get blast change, and you just know that anytime whichever team's first line is out there, that Tkachuk's line is going to be hopping over the boards right after.
Yeah.
And that'll irritate and frustrate everybody. And I think that one of the keys when the Flames do go to Colorado is to try and line match as best as possible with having that line out there against, and try to limit having Gaudreau's line out there with McKinnon's line.
Yeah, because I would think if I'm Colorado, I would want to match up McKinnon with Monahan, but
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that would be what I would be thinking. But that we'll have to see what happens going forward. I mean, the other thing that you could do is you could try Tkachuk with Monahan and Gaudreau if you wanted to. But I do think that that's a fairly significant change. But that if you want to do that, I can't see them not wanting to do that in games 3 or 4. But then the Flames power play, which has been a little bit anemic for the second half of the season. Matthew Tkachuk got a goal. Giordano and Lindholm at the assists. The Avs challenged this.
I think it was more a timeout than anything.
It was because it was a bit of. I was surprised that it took so long. But what happened there? It was the headset, or was it the tablet that was the issue?
Yeah, I am not really sure, but it did take a little long, and I think every Flames fan's like, oh, they're gonna do something weird and call it back, even though, like, that shouldn't even really been challenged at all. But
no,
it is what it is, and you know, you gotta give it to Bednar for trying. At least, because if you somehow get your Hail Mary to connect and it gets called back, it's a lot easier to come back from a 1-0 deficit than a 2-0. And a timeout's not really going to make that much of a difference.
No. And I think at that point too, even though I mean Grubauer certainly encouraged the challenge, it really felt like the momentum was certainly going the Flames' way, that it was worth the risk, I guess, to do it. But ultimately, it was a goal. Start of the third period, the Avs came out fly. Mikko Rantanen had a great chance. Mike Smith made another 10-bell save, and then a couple of other ones. And then the Flames got another power play goal late in the third. Backlund's first from Bennett and Anderson at 17:01. And then Matthew Tkachuk in an empty net, assisted by Mike Smith. So it ends up 4-0. Quick stats numbers for the Flames tonight in terms of, we talked a little bit about the forwards. Tkachuk 2 points, 2 goals. Backlund, Mangiapane. Backlund had 7 shots on goal. He was a real force. Lindholm had 5 hits. I think Lindholm had a really good game. It was one of his better. He hasn't played this well in a while.
Yeah, and it was neat to see Gaudreau throwing the body a couple of times too.
Yeah,
I think you can tell he really wants it when he's starting to throw body checks. It's like, what?
Yeah,
I think he's only thrown maybe 3 hits in his entire career, but
yeah,
get the bruiser out,
yeah. It's surprising the ice time here. Ryan was 13-14. Hathaway was 11-13. They felt like they were on the ice a lot more. Giordano's 26 minutes. Brody 23 minutes. Hamonic 21 minutes. Hanifin 18:51. And Oscar Fantenberg has been a nice little quiet acquisition for the Flames. I think he's done.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
he doesn't do anything flashy offensively. He just does everything solid. Which for number 6, you don't want any drama coming from your number 6 defenseman, and that's why I like having him in the lineup over guys like Shillington or Valimaki, just because those guys occasionally get a little iffy defensively, and when a series can turn on a single bad play, you don't want to have any drama coming from your guys that could cause that. So, Fantenberg's just quiet, solid, does his thing. He was good for LA last year in the playoffs. I think he was their best defenseman last year in the playoffs, even though they were only in there for, I think, 4 games.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and Majapani 7 minutes, but it just felt.
He had maybe the most impactful 7 minutes I've seen in a playoff game. He just, every time he was on the ice, he was noticeable.
Yeah, I thought so too. Colorado, no goals. Here's a stat I think that the one stat that is absolutely shocking: 68% for the Flames in the faceoff circle. Nathan MacKinnon lost 13 faceoffs. The leading faceoff guy for the Flames was Backlund. Actually, he was 13-7. So that I think was key. For the most part, Philip Grubauer was solid tonight. But I think ultimately, their depth was what kind of hurt them. But I think, to me, if you're a Flames fan or you're a Flames supporter, this is the best way that you could start, especially when there was a trend here. Dallas lost their first round match, Nashville lost to Dallas. Tampa Bay had that big comeback blown there by Columbus, and Washington almost blew it with the Jerks. So there was already a trend here. So it's a great way to start. And it's a good way to get this playoff going, I think.
Yeah, Calgary seemed to control the play throughout the game. Even when they got into penalty trouble in the last half of the first period and early in the second, it never really seemed out of control. And Colorado didn't really get that many good scoring chances on those 3 power plays. And they just managed the game until the break started to happen their way. And then the floodgates opened, and there was just nothing that Colorado could do to stymie it at all.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so important for the Flames to win the division, because of the fact that they got to draw Colorado instead of having the fun of Vegas in the first round.
Now, for that, because I'm just curious, because I was actually Colorado. I felt that Colorado was a better matchup than Dallas. Were you on that pattern there too?
Yeah. Dallas, they have a better goaltender than Grubauer with Bishop, and Bishop couldn't win a series by himself, and I don't think Grubauer is that good. Even when Grubauer is hot, which he has been coming into this series, he's just not that good. And having Bishop, Dallas has the same firepower up front that Colorado does, but that goaltending bump that you're getting with Bishop, I think, would have been enough to cause I think the Flames still win that series, but it would have been tougher. Yeah. And, I think Dallas beats Nashville, believe it or not, in their series.
I did pick Nashville, but I wouldn't. It's going 7.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of expecting St. Louis, Dallas in round 2, so... But Nashville, as you said, I think that one's going 6 or 7 either way with Nashville, Dallas.
Yeah.
They're not going to be a pushover. Yeah. I think Winnipeg will be. But.
Yeah. We'll let them worry. Is there anything else we need to talk about here? Or?
No, it was just a very good start to the postseason, and hopefully the Flames don't get too big of a head after that and get in their own way in game 2, thinking, oh, these guys suck.
Yeah.
They just have to, okay, game 1 happened, yay, let's go and reset for game 2 and not take anything for granted, because that's where you can get into trouble very quickly.
Yeah. For sure. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Matt, for joining. For everyone else, thank you also for watching on Facebook Live. Thank you for listening on Agree or Disagree the podcast. Subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. The audio version will be up here. We're going to put that up on YouTube as well, so check that out. Share with your friends or family, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.